Damon Washington's hands trembled as he gripped the steering wheel of his black Bentley, parked outside Harvard University's commencement hall. Through the tinted windows, he could see families streaming toward the entrance, their faces bright with pride and anticipation. But all Damon could feel was the crushing weight of 17 years of searching, hoping, and carrying a guilt so heavy it had nearly destroyed him. The morning Boston sun cast shadows across his dark skin as he checked his Rolex for the 100th time. 1:47 p.m. In 13 minutes, his daughter would walk across that stage, and she had no idea that the father who'd abandoned her was about to witness the most important moment of her life. Damon closed his eyes and saw her face as it had been. 7 years old, gap-toothed smile, hair in neat braids that his wife Keisha would spend an hour perfecting each morning. Little Zara Washington, who used to climb into his lap during his late-night business calls and fall asleep against his chest while he worked on plans that would eventually make him one of the youngest black billionaires in America. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd built an empire trying to provide for his family, only to lose them in the process. If you've ever felt the pain of losing someone you love because of your own mistakes, hit that subscribe button right now. We're racing toward 100,000 subscribers who understand that success means nothing without family. Your support means everything to us. 17 years ago, Damon Washington was a hungry 28-year-old from Detroit's East Side, clawing his way out of poverty with nothing but ambition and a revolutionary idea for financial software that could help underbanked communities access credit. His own family had been victims of predatory lending, watching his grandmother lose her house, to loan sharks who preyed on families who couldn't get traditional bank loans. That pain had driven him to develop software that could democratize financial services, making fair loans accessible to communities that banks had ignored for decades. Keisha, his college sweetheart from Howard University, worked double shifts as a pediatric nurse at Detroit Children's Hospital, while he poured every waking moment into his startup. Their 7-year-old daughter, Zara, was the light of their world. Brilliant, curious, already reading at a 10th grade level, and showing signs of the fierce independence that ran in both their bloodlines. Zara had her father's intensity and her mother's compassion. She would spend hours watching Keisha tend to her patients during the rare occasions when she visited the hospital, asking detailed questions about medicines and treatments. "I want to help sick kids like Mama does," she would tell anyone who would listen. But success demands sacrifice, and Damon had been making the wrong sacrifices for months. He'd missed Zara's school play where she played a young doctor saving lives. He'd missed 3 parent-teacher conferences where her teacher wanted to discuss placing her in gifted programs. He'd missed countless bedtime stories, family dinners, and weekend trips to the Detroit Institute of Arts that Zara loved so much. "You're becoming a ghost in your own house," Keisha had warned him one evening, as she watched him work at the kitchen table while Zara did her homework beside him, desperately trying to get his attention with questions about her math problems. "Just a little longer, baby," Damon had promised, not looking up from his laptop. "This investor meeting could change everything for us." The night that would haunt him forever started with a celebration. After 2 years of rejections, he'd finally secured a meeting with Marcus Chen, a venture capitalist known for backing minority-owned startups. Chen's reputation was legendary. He'd helped create 3 black billionaires and dozens of multimillionaires. Getting a meeting with him was like winning the lottery. The meeting went better than Damon's wildest dreams. Chen wasn't just interested, he was enthusiastic. The software was exactly what the financial industry needed. The market was underserved and ripe for disruption. Chen wanted to invest $5 million initially, with the potential for $20 million more in subsequent rounds. "This changes everything, Keisha," Damon had told his wife over the phone from the downtown Detroit restaurant, where he and Chen were still talking at 11 p.m. "We're about to be set for life. Zara can go to Harvard, just like she dreams about. You can quit nursing if you want to, and focus on your art again. We can move out of this neighborhood, get her into the best schools, give her opportunities we never had." "That's wonderful, Dee," Keisha had replied, but her voice sounded tired, distant. "Zara's been asking for you all day. She made you a card for your meeting. She drew a picture of you in a business suit shaking hands with another man. She wrote, "Daddy's going to help everyone get houses like we did." Damon's heart had squeezed, but Chen was signaling for his attention across the table. "I'll see it when I get home," Damon had promised. "Chen wants to introduce me to his partners at this private club downtown. This could go until 2 a.m., but it's worth it, baby. Everything I've been working toward is happening right now." "Everything you've been working toward," Keisha had repeated quietly. "What about everything we've been working toward, Damon? What about the family part?" But the line was already crackling, and Damon was walking toward Chen's table, his mind already racing ahead to the next meeting, the next opportunity, the next step toward the success that would solve all their problems. He should have heard the resignation in her voice. He should have recognized the warning signs that had been building for months, the way Zara had stopped running to greet him when he came home late, asking instead if he was going to disappear into his computer again. He should have noticed how Keisha had stopped trying to wait up for him, how family dinners had become a thing of the past because he was always just about to close a deal. Instead, he stayed out until 4 a.m., celebrating the biggest night of his business life at an exclusive club where Chen introduced him to other investors, potential partners, and advisors who could help scale his company nationally. They talked about IPOs and acquisition strategies and market penetration. Damon felt like he was floating on air. This was it. This was the moment when all his sacrifices would pay off. When he finally stumbled home, exhausted but euphoric, the house felt different. Too quiet, too still. No Keisha humming while she prepared for her morning shift. No Zara's breathing from her bedroom down the hall. Just silence that felt like death. He found the note on the kitchen table, weighted down by Zara's drawing. A stick figure in a business suit shaking hands with another stick figure, with a little girl and woman standing far away in the corner of the page, looking sad. The note was in Keisha's careful handwriting, the same handwriting that had filled love letters throughout their college years. "Damon, I've been trying to tell you for months that we're losing you. You love your vision of our future more than you love our present. Tonight was the final proof. While you were celebrating your business success, your daughter was crying because she thought you forgot about her card. She waited up until midnight, then fell asleep on the couch clutching it. I carried her to bed and realized that I'm essentially a single mother, married to a man who lives in our house, but isn't part of our family anymore. Zara asked me today if Daddy doesn't love us anymore, because he's never here when she needs him. I couldn't answer her because I don't know the answer anymore either. We're going to stay with my sister in Atlanta while I figure out what comes next. Don't follow us. If you want to be a family man, prove it by choosing us over your next big opportunity. If you want to be a businessman first and father second, then you've already made your choice. We deserve better than fighting for scraps of your attention. Keisha." Damon read the note 17 times before it sank in. His family was gone. His wife and daughter had vanished into the night while he was toasting his success with strangers, and he was standing alone in a house that suddenly felt like a tomb. For the first 3 days, he barely functioned. He called in sick to work, which was impossible since he was the CEO of a one-man company. He called Keisha's phone obsessively, listening to her voicemail message until he had it memorized. He drove to Zara's school, hoping somehow they would be there, that this was all a misunderstanding. On the 4th day, Chen called to discuss next steps. "Washington, you haven't returned any of my calls. Are we moving forward with this investment or not?" Damon explained the situation. His family was gone. He was dealing with a personal crisis. He needed time to get his life together. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Look, son," Chen said finally, "I understand you're going through something, but business doesn't stop for personal problems. I've got other opportunities to pursue, other entrepreneurs who are ready to commit fully to success. If you can't handle the pressure now, how are you going to handle the pressure when we're scaling nationally?" For 6 months, Damon lost his mind trying to balance both worlds. He hired private investigators with money he didn't have. He called Keisha's sister Michelle in Atlanta so many times that she threatened to get a restraining order. He drove to Atlanta every weekend for 3 months, camping out in Michelle's neighborhood until the police were called. He missed meeting after meeting with Chen, ignored emails from potential customers, and watched his golden opportunity slip away as his obsession with finding his family consumed him. "Mr. Washington," Chen had said during their final phone call, "I understand you're going through personal difficulties, but I can't invest in a man who won't return my calls for 3 weeks straight. I'm withdrawing my offer." Damon had been sitting outside Zara's old elementary school when he took that call, hoping against hope that Keisha might have enrolled her there for the new school year. He hung up on Chen and put his head in his hands, realizing that he'd now lost both his family and his business dream. The private investigators came up empty. Michelle claimed she hadn't heard from Keisha, though Damon suspected she was lying. Other family members either didn't know anything or were protecting Keisha's secret. It was like his wife and daughter had been swallowed by the earth. That's when Damon made a choice that would define the rest of his life. If Keisha thought he was a businessman first and a father second, he would prove her wrong. He would build his empire not for his own ego, but as a monument to his love for Zara. Every deal would be for her. Every success would be proof that he'd never stopped fighting for his family. But first, he had to find them. What Damon accomplished over the next decade was nothing short of miraculous. Fueled by a combination of brilliant business instincts and the desperate energy of a man trying to outrun his demons, he rebuilt his financial software company from scratch. Without Chen's investment, he bootstrapped the business using every penny he could scrape together, working 18-hour days and sleeping in his office more nights than not. The first year was brutal. He lost 25 pounds, developed chronic insomnia, and barely spoke to another human being unless it was business-related. But his software was revolutionary, and gradually smaller investors began to take notice. Not the big venture capitalists like Chen, but community leaders, successful black professionals and local business owners who understood the importance of financial inclusion. By year 2, Washington Financial Solutions had secured contracts with 3 credit unions that served predominantly black communities in Detroit, Chicago, and Atlanta. Damon had deliberately chosen Atlanta, hoping that business would give him an excuse to spend time in the city where his family was hiding. By year 3, his software was being used by 15 financial institutions across the Midwest and South. Damon was personally worth $2 million, but he lived like he was broke, pouring every profit back into the business and into his ongoing search for Zara. He hired a different private investigation firm every 6 months, hoping fresh eyes might find clues the previous investigators had missed. He attended hundreds of school events, graduations, and youth programs across the South, always hoping to catch a glimpse of a girl who might be his daughter. He funded scholarship programs for young black women in STEM fields, partly because he believed in the cause, and partly because scholarship applications required detailed background information that might lead him to Zara. By year 5, Washington Financial Solutions had gone national, with contracts in 43 states. Damon was worth $50 million and had been featured on the cover of Black Enterprise magazine as the entrepreneur who's changing how America banks. The article praised his commitment to financial inclusion and his innovative approach to underserved markets. What the article didn't mention was that Damon kept a photo of 7-year-old Zara on his desk, or that he still called her voicemail number on her birthday every year, or that he donated millions to organizations that helped missing and exploited children. By year 8, Damon was worth $200 million. By year 10, he'd crossed the billion-dollar threshold, making him one of the youngest black billionaires in American history. Forbes put him on their cover. Harvard Business School invited him to teach as a visiting professor. The White House asked him to serve on a financial inclusion task force, but success felt hollow when you had no one to share it with. His assistant, Carmen Rodriguez, had been with the company since year 3, a sharp, loyal woman in her early 40s with an MBA from Northwestern. Carmen was the closest thing Damon had to family. She managed his schedule, protected his privacy, and was the only person who knew the full extent of his obsession with finding his daughter. Carmen had grown up in Chicago's South Side, the daughter of Mexican immigrants who'd worked multiple jobs to put her through school. She understood sacrifice, understood what it meant to build something from nothing, and she understood that Damon's relentless drive came from love, not greed. She was also hopelessly in love with him, though she'd never admitted it to anyone, least of all herself. "Mr. Washington," she'd say gently when she found him staring at old photos of Zara late at night in his office, "you can't live your whole life in the past." "I'm not living in the past, Carmen," Damon would reply. "I'm building her future. Everything I'm building is for her. When I find her, I want to be able to give her the world. But what if she doesn't want the world?" Carmen would ask quietly. What if she just wants her father? Those conversations always ended with Damon changing the subject or diving back into work. What Damon didn't know was that Carmen had been keeping a secret from him for over 6 years. In year 4 of his search, Carmen had hired her own private investigator, not to compete with Damon's efforts, but to approach the search differently. While Damon's investigators were looking for Keisha and Zara Washington, Carmen's investigator was looking for single mothers with daughters who had moved to Atlanta around the time of their disappearance. It had taken 2 years, but Carmen's investigator had found them. Keisha was working as a nurse practitioner at Atlanta Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, living under her maiden name of Mitchell. Zara was enrolled in a gifted program at a prestigious private school, also using the name Mitchell. They were living quietly in a middle-class neighborhood, trying to build a new life far from the chaos of Damon's ambition. But Carmen faced a dilemma. Keisha had specifically asked not to be found. She'd built a new life, and she was terrified that Damon would use his growing wealth and power to take Zara away from her. When Carmen's investigator had approached Keisha carefully, explaining that he represented someone who wanted to help financially without requiring contact, Keisha had been suspicious but ultimately grateful. "I don't want him to find us," Keisha had told the investigator. "But if someone wants to help make sure Zara has opportunities, I won't say no. She's brilliant, but private school is expensive, and I'm doing this alone." So Carmen had made a decision that would define the next decade of her life. She would protect both Damon and his daughter by supporting Zara from the shadows while keeping Damon's hope alive without feeding his obsession. She set up an untraceable trust fund that sent monthly payments to Keisha, enough to cover Zara's private school tuition, extracurricular activities, and college savings, but not enough to be obvious or suspicious. The payments came through a series of shell companies linked to Washington Financial Solutions charity division, buried so deep in the corporate structure that even Damon's accountants didn't know the specific recipients. Carmen also established a network of contacts in Atlanta, teachers, school administrators, youth program leaders, who sent regular updates about a scholarship recipient without revealing names or too many identifying details. She knew about Zara's perfect grades, her acceptance into accelerated math and science programs, her volunteer work at the local hospital, her plans to become a doctor. Every month for 6 years, Carmen had been writing detailed reports about scholarship recipients that she filed in a special folder marked Educational Outreach. She told herself she was protecting the privacy of the families they helped, but really she was protecting Damon from the knowledge that would have driven him to Atlanta immediately. She watched him torture himself with guilt and regret while she secretly made sure his daughter had everything she needed to succeed. She watched him pour his wealth into finding Zara while she quietly guided Zara's education and development from a distance. And she fell more in love with him every day, with his dedication to his daughter, with his refusal to give up hope, with the way he channeled his pain into purpose and used his success to help other families like his own. Carmen knew she was playing a dangerous game, keeping secrets from the man she loved while secretly raising his daughter. But she also knew that sometimes love means making impossible choices, and sometimes protecting someone means carrying their burden without them knowing it. When Carmen learned that Zara had been accepted to Harvard Medical School with a full scholarship, she knew the secret couldn't last much longer. Zara was becoming too accomplished, too visible, too much like her, father to stay hidden forever. She also knew that Damon deserved to see his daughter's greatest triumph, so she made a decision that terrified her. She would find a way to get Damon to Harvard for Zara's graduation, but she would let Zara choose whether to make contact. Over the past year, Carmen had been carefully building a relationship with Zara through the scholarship program, exchanging emails about career goals and professional development. She'd presented herself as a mentor figure, someone who understood what it meant to be a woman of color in business, someone who could offer guidance about navigating professional challenges. Zara was brilliant, driven, and surprisingly mature for her age. She was also curious about her origins in ways that her mother couldn't fully satisfy. "My biological father was an entrepreneur," Zara had written in one email. "My mom doesn't like to talk about him, but I sometimes wonder if he ever thinks about me. I wonder if he's proud of what I've accomplished." That email had broken Carmen's heart. Here was this incredible young woman about to graduate from Harvard Medical School, wondering if her father cared about her achievements. And here was her father, building an empire in her honor while torturing himself with the belief that she hated him. On Zara's 24th birthday, Carmen made a decision that would change everything. She told Zara the truth. She sent a carefully crafted email that explained who she was, who Damon was, and what he'd been doing for the past 17 years. She included articles about his business success, his philanthropic work, and his ongoing efforts to find his family. She explained about the scholarship fund, the private investigators, and the sleepless nights when Damon stared at old photos and blamed himself for losing the most important people in his life. "How your father never stopped loving you," Carmen wrote. "He never stopped looking for you. Every success he's achieved has been in your honor. Every dollar he's earned has been with the hope that someday he could share it with you. He doesn't know that I found you, and he doesn't know that I've been helping support your education. I've been protecting both of you in the only way I knew how. But now you're about to begin your own professional life, and you deserve to make your own choices about family, about forgiveness, and about whether some bridges are worth rebuilding." Zara's response had come 3 days later. "I want to meet him, but I want to control how and when. Can you arrange that?" Now sitting in the back corner of Harvard's graduation ceremony, Damon had no idea that every moment of this day had been carefully orchestrated by the woman who loved him and the daughter he'd never stopped searching for. When the individual ceremonies began, Damon thought he might have a heart attack. Graduate after graduate crossed the stage to receive their diploma. Each name called was another step closer to the moment he'd been waiting for since that terrible night in Detroit. The wait was excruciating. Damon's hands were sweating so badly he had to keep wiping them on his pants. His heart was pounding so hard he was certain everyone around him could hear it. This was his daughter, his baby girl, about to receive recognition for one of the highest achievements in American education. "Dr. Zara Mitchell," the announcer finally called. Time stopped. The woman who walked across that stage was magnificent. She moved with purpose and grace, her cap slightly askew, her smile radiant enough to power the entire city of Boston. She was tall like her mother, but had Damon's determined jawline, his intensity, his refusal to settle for anything less than excellence. When she shook hands with the dean of Harvard Medical School, Damon felt 17 years of suppressed emotion crash over him like a tsunami. This was his baby girl, the little girl who used to operate on her stuffed animals with toy medical equipment, the child who once told him she wanted to fix everybody who was broken when she grew up. She'd done it, against impossible odds, without her father's support, while carrying the weight of a broken family. She'd achieved one of the most difficult goals in American education. She was Dr. Zara Mitchell now, about to begin a residency in emergency medicine at one of the most competitive programs in the country. As she walked off the stage, diploma in hand, Damon realized something that broke his heart all over again. She was a complete stranger to him. He knew nothing about the struggles she'd overcome, the friends who'd supported her, the late nights studying, the moments of doubt, the victories that had led to this moment. He was her father, but he was nobody in her life. After the ceremony, Damon watched from a distance as Zara celebrated with her family and friends. He could see Keisha, older now, with silver streaks in her carefully styled hair, but still beautiful, still carrying herself with the grace that had first attracted him in college. There was a man with them, tall and kind-looking, wearing a Proud Dad t-shirt that felt like a knife between Damon's ribs. The man was Marcus Mitchell, Keisha's husband of 12 years. He was a high school principal, a good man who'd raised Zara as his own daughter and legally adopted her when she was 10 years old. Marcus had been the father who attended parent-teacher conferences, coached her debate team, taught her to drive, and scared away her first boyfriend. There were others too, a teenage girl who had to be Zara's half-sister, elderly people who were probably grandparents, friends who looked like they'd been part of Zara's life for years. A whole support system, a whole extended family that had helped create the remarkable woman she'd become. Damon was about to leave, to retreat back to his empty penthouse and his hollow achievements, when Zara suddenly broke away from her group and started walking directly toward him. She knew. Somehow, impossibly, she knew exactly who he was and why he was there. "You're Damon Washington," she said when she reached him. Her voice was steady, confident, but he could see her hands shaking slightly. "You're my biological father." Up close, the resemblance was undeniable. She had Keisha's beauty and grace, but she had his eyes, his intensity, his stubborn determination to succeed against any odds. She was tall, nearly 5'8" in her heels, and carried herself like someone who'd earned every accolade, every opportunity, every moment of recognition. Damon removed his sunglasses with trembling hands. Zara. It was the first time he'd said her name out loud in 17 years. "Don't," she said, holding up a hand when he started to speak. "I know what you're going to say, that you looked for us, that you never stopped loving me, that you're sorry." Damon nodded, unable to find words that felt adequate for this moment. "I sent you that photograph," Zara continued. "I arranged for you to be here today." The revelation hit Damon like a physical blow. "You? How?" "Because I've been looking for you too, and because it was time for us to meet." Zara led Damon to a quiet corner of Harvard's campus, away from the celebrating crowds and curious eyes. For several minutes they just stared at each other, a father and daughter separated by 17 years of questions, hurt, and misunderstanding. "Mom told me you chose your business over us," Zara began. "She said you cared more about making money than being a father. For most of my life, I believed that story." Damon felt like he was drowning. "Zara, that's not—" "I know," she interrupted gently. "I know that's not the whole truth. When I turned 18, I started researching on my own. I found the private investigators you hired. I found the missing person reports you filed in 6 different states. I found articles about your scholarship, programs for young black women in STEM fields." Tears were streaming down Damon's face. "I never stopped looking, not for a single day." "I know," Zara whispered. "I also found out about the money." Damon's heart stopped. "What money?" "The monthly payments that have been supporting me for the past 10 years. Child support, education funds, medical expenses, extracurricular activities. Mom's been receiving money from an account linked to Washington Financial Solutions." The truth hit Damon like lightning. He'd never authorized those payments, but he knew exactly who had been making them. "Carmen," he breathed. Zara nodded. "Your assistant. She found us when I was 14. She's been sending money and getting updates about my life through a scholarship program she created in your company's name. Carmen has been protecting both of us for 10 years, Zara continued. She set up a trust fund to support my education, but she made Mom promise never to reveal our location to you. She was afraid you'd use your wealth and power to disrupt the life we'd built." Damon was speechless. Carmen, quiet, efficient, loyal Carmen, had been secretly supporting his daughter and managing his relationship with her from the shadows for a decade. "She's been getting reports about my grades, my activities, my college applications, my medical school acceptance. She even knows about my plans to specialize in emergency medicine," Zara said. "She's been like a fairy godmother, making sure I had everything I needed to succeed, while protecting you from knowledge that might have driven you to do something destructive." "Why didn't she tell me?" Damon asked. "Because Mom was terrified." "Of you," Zara said honestly. She was convinced that if you found us, you'd use your money and lawyers to take me away from the only father I'd known. Marcus adopted me when I was 10. He's been my dad for 14 years, Damon. He taught me to drive, walked me through my first heartbreak, helped me with my college applications. He's a good man who deserves respect. I would never... I know that now, Zara said firmly. But Mom didn't know that then. She made Carmen promise to help me financially, but never reveal our location. Carmen agreed because she thought it was better for everyone if you had some connection to me, even if you didn't know about it. Carmen's been in love with me, Damon realized. Zara smiled sadly. Anyone with eyes can see that. Carmen Rodriguez has been in love with you for years, and she spent the last decade making sure your daughter was safe and supported while you tortured yourself with guilt. There's something else, Zara said, her voice growing quiet. Something Mom never told you about the night we left. Damon braced himself for another revelation. We didn't leave just because you came home late from your investor meeting. We left because of what happened earlier that day. What do you mean? Zara took a deep breath, gathering courage for what came next. Your mother, Grandma Helen, had a heart attack that afternoon. She was rushed to Detroit Medical Center, and the doctors said you needed to come immediately. They weren't sure she was going to make it. Damon's world tilted off its axis. His mother had died 3 weeks after Keisha and Zara disappeared. He'd always wondered why she hadn't reached out to him during her final days, why she died without saying goodbye. Mom tried to call you, Zara continued. She called your phone 19 times between 4 p.m. and 11 p.m. She left voicemails. She sent texts. She even called the restaurant where you were meeting with Mr. Chen, but they said you'd given strict instructions not to be disturbed. The memory came flooding back like a nightmare. Chen had insisted on complete privacy during their discussions. No phones, no interruptions, nothing that might break their focus on the deal. Damon had turned off his phone at 6 p.m. and hadn't turned it back on until after midnight. While you were celebrating your business success, your mother was dying in a hospital room asking for her son, Zara said gently. Mom drove me to the hospital, and we sat with Grandma Helen for 6 hours. She kept asking where you were. Mom kept promising you'd be there soon, but you never came. Damon was hyperventilating. I didn't know. I never got the messages. Grandma Helen died at 11:47 p.m. I was holding her hand when she took her last breath. Her final words were, "Tell my boy that I'm proud of everything he's accomplished, but I wish he'd been here when I needed him most." The truth was more devastating than anything Damon could have imagined. While he was toasting his future success with Marcus Chen, his mother was dying, and his wife was watching him fail the ultimate test of priorities. Mom left you that night because she realized that even when family needed you most, even when your own mother was dying, your business came first, Zara continued. She couldn't risk putting me through a lifetime of waiting for a father who would always have something more important to do. They sat in silence for a long time, the weight of 17 years of misunderstanding settling between them like a physical presence. Damon finally understood why Keisha had left, why she'd been so determined to keep Zara away from him, why she'd built walls so high it had taken 2 decades to climb them. He hadn't just missed his daughter's childhood, he'd missed his mother's death. He'd chosen a business meeting over the 2 most important people in his world, and he'd lost them both in a single night. I became a doctor partly because of that night, Zara said eventually. Because of that night? I watched Grandma Helen die while her son was somewhere else, building an empire. I watched Mom's heart break as she realized that the man she loved would never prioritize family over success. I decided that when people needed me, when families needed me, I would be there. I would never let anyone die alone while I was off chasing something I thought was more important. Damon's heart shattered all over again. His daughter had spent her entire career trying to fix the thing he'd broken. Families separated by misplaced priorities, people dying without their loved ones present, the space between ambition and what actually matters in life. I need you to understand something, Damon said through his tears. I didn't build my empire for success or recognition. I built it for you. Every deal, every company, Every dollar. It was all to prove to you and your mother that I could be the father you deserved. I got the timing wrong. By 17 years. Zara studied his face for a long moment, seeing the pain and regret that had defined his entire adult life. I want to try, Damon continued. If you'll let me. I want to be part of your life, whatever that looks like. I want to know who you are now, not just remember who you used to be. I want to earn the right to call myself your father again. It won't be easy, Zara warned. I have trust issues when it comes to fathers. I've spent 24 years believing that people leave when something more important comes along. You'll have to prove that nothing is more important than family. Nothing is more important than family, Damon said firmly. I've spent 17 years learning that success means nothing without the people you love. I don't care if it takes another 17 years to earn your trust. I don't care if you never call me Dad. I just want the chance to know my daughter. I'd like that, Zara said softly, but I have conditions. Anything. First, you need to forgive yourself. Grandma Helen's death wasn't entirely your fault. Mum's leaving wasn't entirely your fault. You made a terrible choice that night, but you were young and you thought you were building something better for us. The guilt you've been carrying is destroying you, and I need you healthy if we're going to build a relationship. Damon nodded through his tears. Second, you need to tell Carmen how you feel about her. She spent 15 years loving you from the shadows, and 10 years making sure your daughter was okay. She deserves to know that her love wasn't wasted, and her sacrifices weren't invisible. How did you? I'm observant, and I've been corresponding with her for a year. Any woman who spends a decade secretly supporting her boss's daughter is either incredibly loyal or incredibly in love. Definitely both. And third, Zara grinned, the first genuine smile she'd given him all day. Third, you're buying dinner. I'm a broke medical resident with student loans that'll take me 30 years to pay off. Even with the mysterious financial support I've been getting, my billionaire biological father can spring for a nice meal. For the first time in 17 years, Damon Washington laughed until tears of joy streamed down his face. 3 hours later, Damon found himself sitting across from Keisha and Marcus Mitchell in a quiet restaurant near Harvard. Zara had insisted on the meeting, saying it was time for all the secrets to come out and all the wounds to be addressed properly. Keisha looked exactly the same, but completely different. Still beautiful, still graceful, but there was wisdom and weariness around her eyes that hadn't been there when they were young and optimistic about the future. Marcus was a surprise, warm, intelligent, and completely secure in his role as Zara's father. Instead of hostility, he showed curiosity about the man who'd created the daughter he'd helped raise. "Hello, Damon," Keisha said quietly. "You look successful." "Hello, Keisha, you look happy." They stared at each other across the table while Zara and Marcus watched nervously. "I'm sorry about your mother," Keisha said finally. "I know you didn't get my messages that night. I know you would have been there if you'd known she was dying." "I'm sorry I wasn't there when you needed me," Damon replied. "I'm sorry I chose that meeting over everything else. I'm sorry I let you believe that business was more important to me than family." "You did choose business over family," Keisha said, but there was no anger in her voice anymore, just sad acceptance. "But you were young, and you were trying to build something for us. I understand that now. I didn't understand it then. I lost 17 years with my daughter because I was an idiot who didn't have his priorities straight. You lost 17 years because I was scared and stubborn, and I thought I was protecting Zara from a father who would always disappoint." "Her," Keisha corrected. "We both made mistakes, Damon. The question is what we do now." Marcus cleared his throat gently. "If I may," he said, "I think we should focus on what's best for Zara going forward. She's an adult now, capable of making her own decisions about relationships and family. Our job as the people who love her is to support whatever she chooses." Damon looked at Marcus with new respect. This was the man who'd raised his daughter, who'd been there for every milestone Damon had missed, who'd earned the right to be called Dad through daily acts of love and commitment. "Thank you," Damon said, "for being the father she needed when I couldn't be." Marcus nodded. She's an incredible young woman. You should be proud of the daughter you helped create. Over the next 4 hours, they talked through 17 years of hurt, misunderstanding, and missed opportunities. Keisha told Damon about Zara's childhood, her first steps, her first words, her first day of school, her struggles and triumphs, all the moments he'd missed. Damon told them about the businesses he'd built in Zara's honor, the scholarships he'd funded, the sleepless nights he'd spent wondering if his daughter was safe and happy. She's always been brilliant, Keisha said, watching Zara with obvious pride. Even as a little girl, she wanted to fix everything and everyone. She used to operate on her dolls with toy medical equipment, just like you remembered. I remember that, Damon said softly. She wanted to be a doctor when she was 4 years old. She never changed her mind, Marcus added. Even when things got financially tight, even when other kids were changing their career plans every month, Zara was always focused on becoming a doctor. She said she wanted to help families stay together during medical crises. Carmen's been sending money, Damon admitted. I didn't know about it until today, but she's been supporting Zara financially for a decade. Keisha nodded. I know. Carmen Rodriguez is a remarkable woman, Damon. She's been protecting all of us in her own way. You're not angry about the money? I was grateful for the money, Keisha said honestly. Medical school is expensive, and even with scholarships, Zara needed support. But I was more grateful that someone cared enough to make sure she had opportunities without trying to interfere or manipulate the situation. As the evening wound down, Zara made an announcement that surprised everyone. I've been offered a residency position at Chicago General Hospital, she said. Emergency medicine, 4-year program, very competitive. I was planning to take a position in Boston to stay close to Mom and Marcus, but I'm reconsidering. Damon's heart stopped. You'd move to Chicago? Only if you're serious about being part of my life, Zara said carefully. Only if you're truly committed to putting family first this time. I won't uproot my plans for a father who might change his mind when being a dad gets inconvenient or conflicts with business priorities. Zara Elizabeth Washington Mitchell, Damon said, using both her birth name and adopted name. Nothing will ever be more important to me than being your father. Nothing. You are my greatest achievement, my proudest accomplishment, and the best part of who I am. If you'll let me, I'll spend the rest of my life proving that to you. Zara wiped tears from her eyes. Then I guess I'm moving to Chicago. Damon stood in the surgical observation deck at Chicago General Hospital, watching through the reinforced glass as Dr. Zara Mitchell worked to save the life of a 7-year-old boy who'd been hit by a car. She moved with precision and confidence that belied her status as a first-year resident, her surgical team hanging on her every word as she fought to stabilize a patient who'd arrived with massive internal bleeding. Beside him, Carmen Rodriguez watched with obvious pride. She was wearing the engagement ring Damon had given her 3 months earlier, after Zara had literally locked them in a conference room and refused to let them out until they admitted their feelings for each other. She's incredible, Carmen whispered, watching Zara work with the focused intensity of a master surgeon. She gets that determination from me, Damon replied, squeezing Carmen's hand. But she gets her compassion and grace under pressure from her mother. And her stubborn refusal to give up on lost causes. That she definitely gets from me. They watched as Zara successfully stabilized her young patient and turned to brief the family in the waiting room. Through the observation window, they could see her explaining the situation with the same gentle confidence that had made her the youngest chief resident candidate in the program's history. She called you Dad yesterday, Carmen said quietly, when she was telling me about her surgery schedule for next month. Damon's eyes filled with tears. It had taken 6 months of careful relationship building, but Zara had finally started calling him Dad instead of Damon. Not all the time, and not when she was frustrated with him, but more and more often as their bond grew stronger. I know, I almost started crying right there in the hospital cafeteria. You did start crying right there in the hospital cafeteria. I saw you. Damon laughed, the sound rich with joy instead of the bitter irony that had characterized his laughter for 17 years. She's teaching me that it's okay to cry when you're happy. I spent so many years crying because I was sad that I forgot tears could mean different things. 18 months later, Damon walked Zara down the aisle at her wedding to Dr. James Crawford, a fellow emergency medicine resident she'd met during her second year at Chicago General. It was a beautiful ceremony at Chicago's lakefront, not too big, not too small, just family and close friends celebrating the union of two people who'd found love while saving lives together. Keisha sat in the front row next to Marcus and Zara's half-sister Maya, who was now 16 and planning to follow in her big sister's footsteps by studying pre-med. The family dynamics had taken time to sort out, but they'd all figured out how to be a modern, complicated, loving unit that worked despite its unconventional structure. Marcus had turned out to be not just a good man, but a wise one. He'd helped Damon understand that being Zara's father wasn't about competing for her affection, but about supporting her choices and being present for her important moments. "She has room in her heart for both of us," Marcus had told him. "Love doesn't diminish when it's shared." Carmen sat next to Keisha, wearing her own wedding dress. She and Damon had decided to have a double ceremony, figuring it was time to stop, waiting for life to be perfect, and start celebrating the family they'd built from broken pieces and second chances. As Damon placed Zara's hand in James's, she whispered, "Thank you for never giving up on me, Dad." "Thank you for giving me a second chance to get it right," he whispered back. The moment was perfect, not because it was flawless, but because it was real, earned through years of forgiveness, patience, and the stubborn belief that love could overcome almost any obstacle. 2 years later, Damon and Carmen established the Helen Washington Foundation, named in honor of Damon's mother. The non-profit organization provided comprehensive support to families dealing with medical emergencies, ensuring that parents could be present during their children's treatment without losing their jobs, their homes, or their financial stability. Zara served as the foundation's medical director while continuing her residency at Chicago General. The foundation's first major initiative was a program that provided temporary housing for families whose children required long-term treatment at major medical centers, along with financial support for living expenses and emergency childcare. "Oh, you know what the best part is?" Zara asked Damon during the foundation's first annual fundraising gala. "What's that?" "We're not just helping other families. We're proving that broken things can be made whole again, that lost relationships can be found, that love really is stronger than pride, stronger than time, stronger than all the mistakes that try to keep us apart." The Foundation's mission statement, written jointly by Damon and Zara, read, "Sometimes families break apart, not because love isn't enough, but because life gets in the way. We believe in second chances, in the power of forgiveness, and in the truth that it's never too late to come home." In his keynote speech that night, Damon told their story to a room full of donors, medical professionals, and families who had been helped by the foundation. He talked about the night he chose a business meeting over his family, the 17 years he spent searching for his daughter, and the moment he realized that success means nothing if you have no one to share it with. "I built a billion-dollar empire trying to prove I was worthy of being Zara's father," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the packed ballroom. "But the truth is, I was already worthy the moment she was born. I was worthy because she was mine and I was hers, and no amount of money or success or failure could change that fundamental truth. I just forgot for a while, and she was patient enough and brave enough to give me time to remember. Love isn't about being perfect," he continued, looking directly at Zara, who was sitting at the head table with tears streaming down her face. "Love is about showing up, even when you're scared, even when you're 17 years too late, even when you don't know if the door will open when you knock. Love is about trying and trying again, and never giving up on the people who matter most. My daughter taught me that families aren't just born, they're built with forgiveness, with patience, with the conscious decision to choose each other over and over again, even when it's hard, even when it hurts, even when you have to start all over from scratch and figure out how to love each other as the people you've become instead of the people you used to be." 5 years after that graduation ceremony at Harvard, Damon sat in another graduation hall, this time watching his 3-year-old granddaughter Emma play quietly with medical toys while her parents receive